this is not technically September 27th at midnight 12. Episode 3 of Vision Denial. We're discussing day 2 of play-ins, where it seems where the upsets is now the norm. So, time to reframe ourselves and look at things as if this is now the new normal.
Ooh.
I'm Josh.
Sure. I'm Connor.
And I, as always, am Sebastian.
But 90% of the time.
Oh.
All right. So let's get into these games. We've got a little bit more than yesterday to get through. So
yep.
Let's go with the first game of the day. We've got V3 from Japan versus R7 from Latin America.
We're doing things a little different today. Instead of just jumping over some topics, we're going to try to break down everything as it happened in order.
Yep.
The first thing I want to make a note of really quickly, and this is a trend from the entire day, and this will be piggybacking from the conversation we had yesterday regarding Team Liquid's decision for this, but the Twitch Rakhan round 1 blue side.
Yeah, right. I was very surprised at how on the nose you got that, Seb, because like when the Twitch got picked yesterday, because it only got picked the one time, or no, sorry, it got picked twice. It got picked up by PSG and Team Liquid, and it won both the game. Oh no, sorry, it didn't win both the games. It got banned. Sorry, I should say the PSG game, and it got picked up the TL game. And it did really well, but like I was like, it's just it's a cutesy pick, and then turns out nope, Seb's got like this magic read on the meta, and it's like almost got the same presence in day 2 as Lilia, for example. Yeah. There's only one game where Twitch isn't present, I think. 2.
There's 2 games. I do want to make a point of note, though. This particular combo is strong, but the reason why it failed for all 3 games primarily is because what it's used for in the Team Liquid game, it is not present or possible in every one of these other games. So I think you were right to call out, hey, this seems a little early to do so. Wouldn't it be better to do it on second rotation? And you are absolutely correct on that if it wasn't for the Evelyn pick. But do you notice the difference here? And here, it went from Nidalee first pick. Thank goodness. A really good adaptation. And then Ashe Renekton. I'm like, okay. Interesting. The Renekton's interesting this early, and the Ashe is just standard. And they picked Twitch Rakhan. I thought this is bold.
Right.
In this particular case, I thought this was bold because the Twitch versus Ashe doesn't work out as well. And the Rakhan is picked into a situation where it is super easy to get a bunch of supports to stop it. And they spent the time in the round 2 ban to literally ban out anything that could stop the Rakhan from working, and it was not enough.
Yeah, they got the Leona.
They banned Leona, they banned Lee Sin, and they still managed to pick up Set, which is disruptive to Rakhan's MO. And I love this primarily because they did an awesome pivot. So the way that this was played out, they picked the Set, and the Set is a support, but they pivot this like as if it was a jungle. And so they saw Sion as if this would be a pretty nice round out if Set was the jungle and they were picking a support Nautilus or something. And then they pivot to the Elise. And I think V3 is incredibly intelligent in this drafting in this case.
What I also like about this draft is, like, if you look at it, it's, well, Tristana, Nidalee, and Twitch on the one side all don't have CC. So you only have 2 champions with CC, which means you're relying on the Rakhan and saying, like, hey, that Rakhan W's got to hit something to buy us that time, right? So it's a much harder to play. Sure, those are all contested picks. They're stronger right now. But on the other side, you got 5 champions with a stun, which means it's super easy to just layer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got that, right? You got that Ashe for the engage. So you can go, Ashe arrow into a cocoon, into the Zoe bubble. Like, you have your so many different options on how you can use those to create your picks, and that's basically what happened in the game. Is
that's actually a really good point, Connor. I didn't even notice, but literally, you're right. Every person on that team had at least one form of CC. That's actually nutty.
Which is why I think this pivot to Elise is actually even like so much better, and yet somehow so much more disappointing, because the first 11 minutes or the first 12 minutes of this game, V3 fumbled the execution super hard. You can clearly tell they understand the win conditions that they're trying to do for. I wrote here, good decisions by V3, bad execution, top play at 750.
Yep.
Right? And I'm like, okay, Rainbow 7 are overperforming way better than I expected them to do, right? But the draft weakness shows up because by the time that the 14-minute mark hits, it's much easier for them to control team fights. They have a better time controlling the neutral objective. They have a better time engaging or re-engaging fights. Unfortunately, V3 didn't have any wave manipulation, which made it harder for them to do anything.
Sure.
And frustratingly enough, too, and the casters even talked about this, Rainbow 7 has a desperation issue. They kept engaging on the set over and over and over.
Yes. I actually wanted to talk about that. Like, I don't think there was a single point in time in that game where like it was a good idea to get the set. Like,
Yeah.
it seemed like every time they were really trying to get the Ash, and then they would, or not the Ash, they were really trying to get like the Twitch. Oh my god, sorry, yes, the Ash. They'd be trying to get the Ash, and then they would like go, screw it, it's too hard. Just dogpile the set, and it's like, cool. The set has a giant shield and won't die. Like,
Well, they're not playing champions that really, die well. Like Nidalee can hit a spear and get her passive and jump in, which did happen, once or twice, almost worked. But when you're playing like double AD carries have a much easier time hitting a front line. And the set, you can say, did a good job of saying, hey, I'm making sure I'm in your range and threatening you and keeping you away from my carries, right? So.
And this is a thing I think I want to make a note of any people who watch this who are like, I'm trying to get pro, or I'm trying to like get better at playing any type of team situation, or they're trying to get better at whatever drafts are. Your double AD carry comps, and just to the point what Connor mentioned, because they hit front lines better, and that's what they're focused on, make sure that the comp you're picking double AD carry for does not have strong re-engage. Because if they have strong re-engage and the AD carries are out of position in any shape or form because they have to hit the front lines, you're going to lose out. Especially if you have not any proper form of engage, which you will be weakened by 280 carries.
Sure.
So opting into 280 carries, I don't think was the right move, especially by the time that they had the set. They had Renekton, Ashe, Zoe, and set, which by the time you have a set and you have a front line, you immediately have re-engaged by the Zoe and Renekton.
Yeah.
And they opted into a Tristana and Sion. That immediately was a mistake from that point. Let alone the Twitch Rakhan, which I think was done too early. Opting into a double AD carry when there was strong re-engage, not the move. I also want to point out V3 is not as clean at the execution at this. They're much smarter. And I do think they are the I'm gonna point it out here. I think they're the smartest macro team of this group. They clearly show a smarter understanding of their win conditions, what the timings are. I put a bunch of notes going like the timings are really good, but they are not so good at the execution. They were gifted a transition to late game that should have been theirs much earlier, and they should have closed out the games 2 minutes sooner than what they did. And you can tell that they have a hard time executing on this just by the first 10 minutes of the game. And you can tell that they have a harder execution just by the way that they were closing out the game. It was sloppy, but due to the fact that they were smarter at the way that they're of the game, like the way they approached it from drafts and from win conditions, it really supplemented the fact that maybe their players are not as mechanically comfortable executing on these types of compositions.
Yeah.
Now, this isn't like by far the most complicated composition, but it's also not the simplest one. So I think for tomorrow, because this group is what's playing tomorrow, if V3 decides to pick simpler compositions that complement their awareness and their execution on win conditions, this team I could see make the top 3.
Ooh.
Well, they're 1-1 right now.
Yes.
Are they? Yeah. They're technically in third right now.
Yes. I'm not even saying that by just results based. I'm saying that also because of how LGD is playing. But we'll get there. I've got some thoughts.
Yeah.
So, anything else for this game then?
Not much. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
There's not much more that I can think of this other than I'm happy Japan is showing the international and historical trend of being better every year so far, despite the fact that V3 did not have my hope.
The year that Japan gets as good at League as they are fighting games will be amazing. Okay, so then if we're done with this, that means that our next game is INTZ from Brazil and Supermassive from, oh my god, Turkey.
Turkey.
Yep. So I guess I'll start with this if that's all right. So since I was, I had Supermassive a little bit higher in my rankings, and I was like, yeah, this team is good. They could do good against the top 2 teams in the
Some
group.
would say a fanboy.
I had Supermassive and UOL as the 2 teams. I was like, yeah, they're going to do good. It's going all right so far with that. So I had like Team Supermassive, basically, we'll call them team supports. So they just, you look at the draft scene, like the Lulu mid, Seta, Nautilus, Shed, like you could call that like 4 supports almost. Like in the sense that like, Shed is designed to play around the team, and then they're just saying, setting up Kakao's hacker room to just get ahead and carry. But it worked, and the Shen was insane. Armut, since we're talking about the game, I have him as my player of the day. I don't know about you two, but
not for me. But
no?
Okay.
But
the I thought this was interesting in terms of the draft. The Lulu Nautilus really cemented this. Like this was 2 games in a row where you would pivot a support mid flex. The game before it was pivoted mid goes to support. This game it was pivoted support goes mid. Right in the second round, and I think if this is the trend from some of the smarter teams, we're going to have some very, very spicy takes in round 1s, because that's where I think people are going to start doing some of the throw-offs and use some of the flexes in round 2, as opposed to what was like the yearly trend beforehand.
Yeah, it's true. I like the set, for example, we've only seen it mid and support, and even like, for example, like Spring Split, set was the flex between jungle and top.
Yep. It's completely been warped.
So what I will mention here is 2 things that worry me. One, ITZ is desperate, and that worries me a lot. I want them to refocus on their composure. They still have a chance to get to the best of 5 aspect. They have 1 chance left.
Wait, they can still get to best of 5s with their score?
Yes.
Yeah, you just need to win 1 game. If you're 1-3, you can get 4th place. You make it to that best of 5s.
Oh wow, I forgot about that. Okay, this system's actually not that. It's actually pretty forgiving then. Never mind.
If and also and the casters talked about this. The tiebreakers is not head to head. If you lost to a team but you both have the same score, the team that beat you will choose which side they play on, but you still have 1 match to do the tiebreaker.
Interesting.
So you get side selection as your advantage.
Yeah. So there is a chance for them to do it. It is not good, but for them to do it, they have to ease up on the desperation. I think their draft was fine, save for the Caitlyn burst ban. I will now pivot to Supermassive, who are worrying me, despite the fact these have 2 wins.
Okay.
Yeah, they're worrying me because this is more of a trend of what their first playoff series was. Kakao was ahead, the team was ahead. And the team plays well off of reactions. They were reacting well to INTZ, but they did not have the initiative. They did not have the pace control of this entire game.
I can agree with
they
that.
kept the lead the same for almost the entire game up until, what was it? It was the 28-minute mark.
Okay.
And the lead, yeah, it's like good on support to keep lead, good on supermassive to keep lead, but they aren't ballooning it. And 3K lead for 8 minutes means nothing. They had a 3K lead for 8 minutes, and casters and a bunch of other games will say, "Cool, they've had a 5K lead for like 25 minutes, but everybody's now at a certain item point. That 5K lead means nothing." This is the same thing. And by the time the 28-minute like worked out, is because the league grew, but as a reaction from an engage that INTZ put through. I want them to not be a reactionary team. I want them to be initiative, proactive.
Well, like my notes, like 21 minutes. Armut and Cacao go in 2v5. Like just Hecarim ult, Shen ult, let's just go in 2v5 in the opponent's jungle. I wouldn't really call that reactionary.
But why are they 2v5?
The rest of their team was behind them and showed up like 3 seconds later. It's just they saw the enemy team. Hecarim just ults right into the backline, Shen on top of it.
But that's not like a proactive play to win anything. They didn't get anything out of that.
They did.
Like, oh, someone's cut out. Do a thing.
They got 2 kills. They got 2 kills. Set up their vision.
And then what?
And
then their lead stayed that way, still at 3K.
Well, that's true.
I'm not saying that Connor's right or wrong, but
I think they gotta drag that
I'm getting vibes of like when people like criticize their friends driving and the friend turns around and goes, "But did you die?" And it's like, I mean, no, we didn't die. Was it still the best driving I've ever seen? I don't know. So like, I think it's a bit of column A, a bit of column B. Like it's like it was an okay play, but it probably wasn't like the best play to be doing.
What I will say though is that once their lead had properly ballooned, they did close out well, and I will commend them on being able to properly close. Which is, my God, the number of teams that can properly close out in this play-in stage is great. V3 is the only outlier so far. If any team had a lead so far, they were much better at closing, except for Unicorns of Love, and we'll get to them later.
Another thing that's neat about this game is that this is the only game so far of Worlds where Shen was picked. All the other games where Shen has a presence, it's a ban. So that's actually pretty neat because he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He's been in 8 of the games that we've had so far, and only one of them's been a pick. So it's kind of cool that he was able to get through.
Also, Rune and Senna. That's it. I don't have any comments about that. I'm like, okay.
Hey,
but
it was a strat.
But like you said, first episode, like, hey, Supermassive, their laners worry me. Look at this point, it's like, okay, I get your point. Like maybe the ADC mid laner, not as strong as they are in a lot of other teams. Maybe that should worry you. But currently, it's support, top, jungle are playing so well that partly why they're not, ballooning those leads so well. It's because it's their tanks and it's their that are getting fed, right? It's not when you get a damage dealer ahead, when you have like your 9-0 Lucian, you win the game because she just one shots you. When a tank gets fed, sometimes it's just like, well, he'll never die, but it doesn't help them take Baron any faster or anything, having more armor necessarily, right?
Yeah. So like, here's the thing. Or sorry, are we done with this point, or? I
mean, what's your thoughts on this one? Like,
of this game specifically?
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those. It's kind of like the same mentality that like NA gets sometimes, where it's just like, but we did the thing, so like shut up, kind of thing about it, right? Like that's like kind of the vibe I'm almost feeling with this game, where it's like, yeah, like Runa and Senna, like, but it's like, but hey, like, it worked, like, no carries. Well, one carry being the jungle which in my opinion is kind of a risky play when your only carry is the jungle.
Senna did not carry that game. So,
No, but
Senna
that's what I'm
probably
saying.
could
The
have.
Heck Room was the carry, right? So it's like I think it's a
Senna
bit.
could have built a Randuin's, and they still would have won that game.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Again, I'm not like exactly like they won, so like
Props.
props and like you can't take away the fact that they won, but then we also still need to like again, I'm not gonna poo-poo all over their parade like Seb is. But I do also have to agree with Seb that like some of the stuff that was done is worrisome, and if they make it to BO5s, or sorry, they probably are making it to BO5s at this point.
No, they're guaranteed to make BO5.
There you go.
Yeah.
BO5s / potential group stage, if that's even a thing. Like, there's the potential to be exploited for that kind of stuff. So,
can we talk about the second Supermassive game as well then? Since we're talking about them.
Get to that. I think the next game is important to talk about in context to the ones that come after.
Oh,
this.
you're right. I actually really want to talk about this game because like this is it's two really fun things happened to this game. So Unicorns of Love versus V3.
Okay, sure.
The two fun things about this game is that one, it's the first Unicorns game. So I'm hyped.
Yep.
And the second thing is that it's the first Kassadin game of Worlds.
I did say, hey, here's Kassadin.
Yeah, and like
it literally echoed in my head the entire game, and I'm here going because I put question marks next to the Kassadin.
Yep.
I hate this draft.
Oh.
Both ends. Both of these teams, I can't like. I went like V3. You're the smartest. This was the smartest I've seen you go for it, and your first two bans were Evelyn Lux.
Mm-hmm.
This. What are you? You're telling me immediately that you're planning on doing early dragon fights, and you're trying to make sure that you have something hardy that won't have a good answer to crowd control. And I think Unicorns of Love kind of read this, but then they decided to just straight up answer that with, all right, cool. We're going to ban Lilia, Ashe, Nidalee, but then we're going to pick Orianna Graves and Camille, and this is clearly the solid pick. And I'm like, all right, most other games have been, this is good. This is fairly standard.
Yeah.
And then they pick Sion, and then V3 picks Sion Karthus as if to like kind of flex on Unicorn, saying, hey, we can play your style too. I'm like, all right, so far this is fine. They pick Nolus, and then V3 picks Set Galio. And then I have an immediate issue with this. Because you're immediately reliant on Karthus winning with a bunch of tanks.
Yeah.
And a Caitlyn with no proper disengage option in that team.
Well, no, they didn't have that many tanks.
Because that team of tanks is to go in.
You mean V3 had too many tanks? Sorry, I thought you meant Unicorns picked too many tanks. I was like,
no. V3 picked too many tanks here.
Yeah.
I think the type of setup of comp that they had really hurt them. And then Unicorns decides to pick Kassadin and put Orianna bot lane. And this Orianna was absolutely useless.
The shockwaves were good.
Yeah, great. That's awesome. Her presence, non-existence outside of the shockwaves. She's a CC bot.
Okay, but V3 did the lane swaps to hurt the Orianna and, camp the Orianna more so. So basically, the Orianna was just absorbing pressure and saying...
It wasn't to hurt the Orianna.
Okay.
No, the Orianna was absolutely inconsequential to why they did the lane swap. The lane swap was to hurt the Camille.
Yeah.
And they fucked it up. And this is really weird, too, because V3 doing the lane swap, and they started off this lane swap almost perfectly.
Yep.
And they kept up the tempo. This tempo for this game is absolutely crazy from V3.
Oh, yeah,
this is part of why my comment from, like, I could see this being a top 3 team in that particular group is because the way that they were approaching the macro is incredible, but their execution is just lacking. Mm-hmm. And this was like a very frustrating game to watch. There's some cool shit that happens here.
I'm mostly here for that.
Remember how I was like, guys, Nomads, he's great.
And he's why I put, and this game and his other game is why I put No Man's as my player of the day.
You did? Okay.
Honestly, No Man's kept the control of the entire thing from Unicorns, because it tells me right now that Unicorns play for fighting and don't have a read on how the macro works. But No Man's controls how teams respond to the pace. And we'll talk about that later with their other game. But this exactly right here, the way that No Man's played around the pacing of the game and made sure that V3 couldn't get any solid leads anywhere. No Man's carried this game, bar none.
Oh, yeah.
Sure, Camille had like the early lead that was gifted, but felt absolutely useless. Oriana felt like there was nothing going on here. The team overall felt like a setup for the No Man's Land.
Yep. He hit level 15 at like 19 minutes. Then it took him a little while in 15, but I was kind of watching, okay, where's the 16? Where's the 16? But even 23 minutes for level 16, everyone else in the game, like the opponent's team, is level 12 for the most part. His team, 12 and 13. I think top is 14 or something. He's 16. And when you're like, forget the gold, his level lead is enough for him to be 1v2ing.
And this is over here. This is why I think this is an important comparison to like the previous game, because I put a note here. I said, good job to balloon leads from UOL. Because the second they grabbed a lead, they never let go. And this is the literally stark contrast difference between how SuperMassive approaches leads and how UOL approaches leads.
Well, he was playing solo queue going, can I kill someone? I'm in their base. Can I kill someone?
I mean, it's not just that. It's the fact that they took a team that was playing high pressure, answered that high pressure, and made sure that the high pressure itself is what choked them out. Yes, it looked like a solo queue game. It mostly was. But the fact of the matter is that if you know how to still balloon a gold lead, even in a solo queue game, that is much more notable than a team that just knows how to stay ahead but not balloon the lead at all and lets the team turtle.
Play of the day has to be that 16-minute Cassidy play.
Yes.
That'll be like, for Worlds this year, like that'll be one of the
very.
Remember when this happened?
Yeah.
When Worlds 2021 rolls around, I would not be surprised if that clip ends up in like the highlight where they hear like Trevor Henry go like, "Oh, it's unbelievable," and then like there'll be like clips of like the Cassidy play. I'm like convinced.
Yeah.
I did put a note at the end. I get that UOL wanted a style, but better teams in groups won't let them get away with a botched closer.
For sure. I definitely think that they're gonna hit a really rough patch with that. And that might even happen before groups even. Like that's probably gonna happen in the BO5s, right? So it's gonna be rough, but again, this has been the worlds of upsets, it seems like so far, in terms of at least early predictions. So maybe just like how PSG performed to most people's chagrin, overperformed. Maybe UOL, like they get a couple more scrims in, and they solidify a little bit of that kookiness.
But they don't draft what people are used to as well, right? Like, so maybe they can go into the group stage, potentially, and be like, hey, we don't know what to expect from these guys. They can pull out weird things, so they can be that kind of, hey, they can pull a game off, right? Like, so it'll be cool to watch at least. As someone watching the games, it'd be cool to say, hey, they might not be as good as some of these, our Chinese and Korean teams going in, but they're certainly going to make it fun to watch. So.
Yep.
I think so. I think they'll make it very entertaining to watch as people who enjoyed watching the games in Season 3 and Season 4 where individual play mattered more than team play.
Yeah.
There's one last thing I want to point out. I put a note here. V3 making the gold even at 15 minutes means that they understood the game and what needed to be done early. Like they understood what the win conditions were and they understood what the pacing of the game was supposed to look like.
Yep, and they were.
But again, that 16-minute play
trying to feature Caitlyn.
Throw. I don't understand what the fuck they were doing. They were definitely tilted. But those two things, I think, is that UOL is much better at ballooning leads in this group than most of the other teams. But that's because I think they have a better understanding of what their personal limits and team fights are. And that's something that was reflected in the way that they played in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
But B3 is a much smarter team. And unfortunately, they just don't have the execution to it. Their players are not fundamentally as good as.
We also have to remember that in terms of worlds, at least, only one of the players, I feel like it's the mid. No, it's not the mid. Anyway, there's only one. Pardon?
Like they're newer players. Like this, you were saying?
Yeah, like almost all the players on V3 are new to Worlds except for one of their players. I remember the caster saying. So, like, there's also that. So hopefully, like those jitters kind of go away. And another thing, like this is kind of like a broad thing for most games that like should like help kind of put a grain of salt to things, is that it is true that for a vast majority of teams, they've been competing online in their living rooms, in their gaming houses for the better half of like 4 or 5 months, right? So, like, who knows how different that could be, like switching over to not only like all the jet lag that happens potentially.
Japan was on LAN.
No, sorry, I know. I'm not saying like I know. That's why I said the vast majority.
Okay.
It's been mentioned, but I think most people, the other stuff I've been watching is like, well, sure, you can say jet lag or being in isolation, but if it's everyone, it's like, well, you can't know. Oh, this particular player is going to get affected by this more than this player, so therefore they're going to do worse. You can't say. You don't know. So
that's
it's
true.
Because, like, yeah, and exactly. Because what do you say to LGD then?
Well, we'll get to LGD, but I cry.
That's literally the next thing.
Yeah.
Do you want to move on?
Yeah,
Sure.
because everything else has been covered, and this makes a great jumping off point.
So really, oh, was that you reacting to the game, or is that?
I've got choice words for LGD.
Okay.
I've got angry choice words.
Really quick before you go, I personally like looking at the pick ban. I honestly, and maybe this is just because I'm not that smart a drafter and all that stuff, but I see the LGD team versus R7, and in my mind, I'm thinking there is no way that like this Nidalee does an okay job / the Ornn. Like I'm like I like personally, I look at this team comp and I'm like, if LGD's got Lee Sin, Camille, TF, like I don't get how they didn't like win harder, I guess, or whatever.
They gave up dragon control by picking the Rakhan.
Yeah.
Remember, I said this is going to be a trend. You picked Twisted Fate and misunderstood why the Twisted Fate Twitch Rakhan combo worked with Team Liquid. It was a direct consequence to the type of composition that was picked by Mad Lions because of the Evelynn or things similar to Evelynn. You don't just pick this randomly. TF as a first pick is whatever. But you gave up the priority from Nidalee, which I think good. Peanut has not been playing well, and you guys haven't been playing well with this type of composition.
Yeah.
I think Rainbow Seven made it very weird to pick Nautilus, but it was not something that was like, oh no. They picked Rakhan Twitch, and then second they picked Ezreal. I thought LGD fucked up this draft, especially since they let a ban through.
Yeah. That's definitely something that we can't gloss over. It's very weird. Did they run out of time? I forget what was said. Or did they just not do it?
No one knows.
Hard to say. Yeah.
I think this is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
You ban Shen and Lucian knowing full well that you're aiming to do solo lane focus and topside focus in terms of your draft. You have set Ashe and Callista banned, and then you know immediately that Rainbow Seven is going to do a bot lane focus on this. Why not take advantage of the fact that they're going to do a bot lane focus, and you clearly think you're going to do better than them, and focus on your topside draft, get a clear, like, solid core, and let them do their bot focus, right? They picked Ezreal. They clearly intended to pick Ezreal because that's what they thought it would be a clear, strong core to focus on dragons. And all credit to Rainbow Seven. I think this is an incredible draft by them. They were very intelligent at this approach, especially given what they were trying to do. Like they immediately, so they pick Rakhan Twitch again. Teams don't just pick a combo without understanding what it provides. The combo is literally meant to be an assist to a re-engage, but you only have engage in this composition. If you're gonna pick Twitch Rakhan, pick it in the second round. Like this previous episode, Josh and Connor were absolutely right to say, hey, it would have probably been better in the second round. And the only reason why Team Liquid were smart about it is because they immediately knew what the core was going to look like from Mad.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, you don't know what the core looks like outside of Dragon Control.
Yeah, I love the R7 draft because it's like, you look at it, it's like, okay, you have Ornn, Ezreal, Orianna. You got great late game scaling. You got Ornn items, Ezreal and Orianna are good late. You got, with Orianna and Nidalee, you got your shields and your healing. So you got that kind of like, okay, we got some defensive options and some enchanters. And then, Nautilus is fairly good early. You can set up a little bit left like that kill threat with the amount of CC he has. And Nidalee's a better early game jungler as well to like keep up pressure. So you have early game options. You're not just like, you didn't, pick the Kassadin and say like, oh, we can't really do, or the Evelynn and say, we can't do anything the first few minutes of the game. You have a good late game comp, decent team fight, chanter options. Like it's just really good all around.
Yeah. And it is much better at approaching neutral objective controls.
Mm-hmm.
And you clearly saw that when it was happening.
Like, plus it's almost a poke comp too, with the Nidalee and Ezreal being able to just throw those abilities. You have great,
you have great disengage options through Ornn. You have great engage options. You got 3 of them actually.
Yep.
And like, I know who's doing the drafting for LGD.
Also, we were mentioning last episode, I said like, hey, I was looking at the stats, like Peanut's CS per minute is like near the bottom for junglers.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's not getting much CS. Like this game, I specifically paused it at 15 minutes so I could say like at 15. That's the number they usually go by. Jose was plus 47.
Yeah,
plus 47 CS.
I broke it down even more. Ready?
Okay. Yep.
At 6 minutes, Peanut is 18 down.
Yep.
Okay, cool. At where is it again? At 24 minutes, Peanut is 53 down.
Yep.
Where is it again? There's a fumble, and then G3.
I mean, those numbers are all you need to hear, really. Like,
yeah, but it gets worse over time.
Well, by late game, when you have control in the late game and you're pushing inhibitors, you can always take like all 12 camps in the map. So,
and then I think the worst part about this, though, at 28 minutes, LGD had the gold lead.
Yeah.
Do you know at what time R7 got the gold lead?
It was late. I noticed that too. It's like, so it was like 31 or something.
38 minutes and 10 seconds, and then they win a minute and 30 seconds later.
Yeah. But technically, they're not really behind on gold when you have the Ornn, when you have Dragon Soul.
But they were 3,000 gold behind the vast majority of the game.
Yep.
And this is echoes immediately the same thing I mentioned with SuperMassive. This is almost point for point the exact same thing, but with a significantly better team on paper. But clearly a significantly worse team on the stage. Oh, and also, remember last time when I put a note here saying Peanut doing something random, losing pressure during Baron? Peanut, again, at 33 minutes, doing something random. They also put in Mark this game.
Yep. That's true. They did do that.
Hasn't he been playing most of the series?
They've only had 2 games so far. They have 2 more games tomorrow.
Okay. Oh, they did play Kahlua last time?
They played Mark both of these games so far.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Honestly, I don't know what's happening. Something has to change. And I know they are only allowed 1 substitute during Worlds.
Did they bring Kahlua? I think they did,
I
right?
don't know who they brought as their substitute. That's not been announced.
Oh. He's the one they actually play the most, so you'd think so. I mean, Zaye, is that his name? Their mid laner, Zaye? Jie? Jie was good both games. That was like is my note. Like he's been up in CS, he's been winning his lane, he's been impacting elsewhere, he's been doing all the things you'd want from your mid laner from a certain extent. Like, sure, he's not solo carrying, 10 and 0, but like, yeah, he's doing the things you'd want out of your mid laner. Right? So,
but Longshi is trading kills to an Ornn. You don't want to be trading kills to an Ornn. You want to be pushing the Ornn out so they're useless. But if you die, you functionally serve no purpose.
Yeah, you just help the Ornn along to get the ornaments going.
Ornaments.
R7 had much better vision this game. I must say, even in the game they lost, this is a step up from them, 100%. And I think they'll make. I'm gonna get blasted for this. I don't think LGD is getting out of this. I think they're gonna land.
Are we calling it already?
This is my question.
Like,
of the
you
day.
don't think that they're even getting to groups? Like, sorry, not groups. You don't think they're even getting to best of fives?
R7 is the worst of the other 4 teams, and LGD lost to them. B3 beat R7, PSG beat R7, and you're expecting UOL to beat R7. Unless R7 comes up with another upset. Again, I mentioned in the first episode, if there's going to be a major upset happening, R7's your boys. But that doesn't stop the fact that this doesn't feel like an upset. This feels like the norm.
Yeah.
Arguably. Yeah, last thing I had about this game was, like, LGG had wards out. Like, I was glancing at the vision scores, like, to see for a general idea, and, like, yeah, the support had, like, 120 again. Like, he's obviously clearing a ton of wards just in order to get that number that high. You have to be. But, like, R7 just went, okay, group is 5. We're, showing up to the dragons on spawn and stuff, forcing LGD to come to them for the objectives. And then they have their wards, on the Baron, on the Dragon during the fight. They have the vision control first. And for example, in like the fight where, they were 5v4 and stuff, like the fact that like Ezreal was able to like escape to a bush and get out of sight so he couldn't be auto-attacked was super important. Being able to get back to the bushes and being able to say like, okay, we have vision here, like I have a control ward, I could hide it and stuff, like that helped their team fight.
They lost in vision, neutral control, and team fight from a team that is supposed to be arguably tied to V3 and worst in the group.
Yeah.
So my question is, are you of the same opinion that LGD is likely to lose their next 2 games if they keep this up and then be automatically eliminated out of play-ins, being the first time a major region sends a team into play-ins and gets eliminated?
Well, I think it's interesting to see them versus UOL because, like we said, like UOL was like Nomaz was carrying, and as we said, like Jaye, if I'm saying that properly, is the best performing player in LGA is the best performing player in LGD right now. That's my matchup to watch going into that game. Like,
also, just by the way, I just checked really quick the roster section on Lolpedia. It does not list Kahlua there.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Good to know.
I mean, maybe it's marked as an unmarked like sub, but it has the 5 players and then 2 what I'm assuming are coaches. Yeah, the whistle symbols there, so they're the coaches. I actually would kind of love the storyline of LGD getting out of groups. I mean, leaving groups. Oh my god, not groups, play-ins, getting kicked out of play-ins. Just because I think it would then show, to a certain extent, that like other regions have game. You know what I mean? Because like LGD is essentially like the 4th seed, or sorry, it is the 4th seed, and they could be considered like 4th place in the region, right? Like They would be considered the
They're
fourth.
straight up fourth place in the region.
Cool. So then, if they're the
And
fourth
China
place
has more
team,
teams, so
yeah. So
fourth
they're
out
the
of
fourth
16 is better than
seed
fourth out of 10.
of like 18 or 20 teams or something like that. Like
Sure,
ridiculous.
yeah.
So like, if for example, like let's just get back to the pools there. Like let's
Yep.
say that what's it called? R7 makes it out. Let's just go with that, right? R7 somehow makes it into groups. Like that now gives a ton of like respect, I guess is the word I would use, towards other regions just for being able to show up. You know what I mean? Yes, they're the first seeds, but like 9 times out of 10 when other teams or when other like analysts or podcasts or whatever talk about, and we've done it a little bit too, when we talk about the emerging regions, we talk as if they're sending like their 8th place team to go compete against a bunch of like S grade players, right? And it's like maybe now we can kind of start to drift away from that attitude as like a general consensus. And like
I mean, I've been hyping UOL and SuperMassive from day one.
I know, but like I'm talking more from like a general public standpoint,
Yeah.
right? Because like even like on Twitter and stuff like that, you still see a lot of like it's R7 or like SuperMassive. Like they showed up that one time, but like it's SuperMassive. Like there's still like a weird like sticker on them of like don't take seriously type thing. So if LGD don't make it out of play-ins, I hope that it kind of starts to light the spark of like being more like respectful.
Don't underestimate.
Yeah, like more respectful of lower lower emerging regions, right? Because it's like, yes,
Sure.
they aren't as good as Korea and stuff like that. No one's really going to argue that. But we shouldn't talk about their first seeds as if it's the 8th NA seed. Do you know what I mean? That's all I'm hoping.
Sure. Do you want to move on then?
Yeah.
I have
we
one
can go on to the next game.
I do
Sure,
have
go
one
ahead.
point, and I think it's mostly just like as a foreshadow to points later on.
Yeah.
Is that so? Nobody thought about that in terms of Vietnam or Turkey. Vietnam and Turkey and Russia are all expected to show up as a minor region.
Mm-hmm.
I think your point that Josh is making is much more significant in terms of the Latin American,
Japan, Australia, Latin American. Yeah.
I mean, Australia is yet to show me something that like really
still hating on the
invigorates
Aussies
passion here. But mostly Latin America doesn't get much praise at all. Australia gets plenty of praise by some of the casting desk, and a lot of them are always excited, and it's flops. But Latin America doesn't.
Japan doesn't really normally.
Japan doesn't. Which is weird because Japan, 2 years ago, almost knocked out Cloud9, who made it to the semifinals.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you want to give any context to that, but Josh is absolutely right. But it also gives context to how seriously are these other regions that are major taking the tournament. Like, I'm not going to say they're not taking it seriously.
But it's like, if you were prepping for SKT, you'd probably run yourself like an 8-hour scrim block, right? Or sorry, not an 8-hour scrim block, but like 8 hours worth of scrims in a day. But like,
and they probably
are they potentially only organizing 2 hours worth of scrims because it's like, it's just V3 or like stuff like that.
I don't know if that's necessarily it. I don't know if they're taking seriously the way to approach the meta or the way to approach their strategies to the teams.
Okay.
It sounds like they're not necessarily thinking deeply about how these teams approach things, except Team Liquid.
That's probably partially because they have Jat, and Jat's like a robot, so.
But that's my point, right?
Yeah.
Like we can't disregard
we'll get there.
North America and all the other regions completely in this situation and not be taking this seriously. Because this tells me LGD is not taking it seriously, Mad is not taking this seriously, and as a conjecture, we can tell when two teams are taking it seriously because this next game shows that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's get into that now.
PSG? Yeah. Yeah. So I don't like PSG's draft here.
I don't either.
So let's say, because so you're looking at it and you have, what do they end up drafting? They are blue side, so
They
it
picked
is
their first picks were Echo Set.
I like
right.
that. That's fine.
Okay, that's fine. Sure, Echo set is fine. You know, if it was Volibear's next, that's fine. But you're looking at it, it's like, okay, you have basically 3 tanks, and your damage is Jin, Echo. Echo has to get in people's face. You know, he has a burst damage, but it's not necessarily full-on sustained damage.
And
Jin
unless
is, you
Jin's
know,
ahead,
known for the
it's very
shots
slow.
1, 2, 3, 4, and often in team fights, he's ulting, right? He's only getting off like that boom, shot, boom, shot. Like, Jin is not your sustained DPS. He's not going to, like a Twitch can, like, just, you know, blow up a team fight, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Jin Echo does not do sustained DPS. Like, for example, like, trying to take Baron as those 5, probably like, you know, your 40-second super slow Baron, right? Like, they don't have a ton of damage. So they don't get through the enemy team.
This is exactly right. And I think that PSG fucked it up literally with the last pick. They had the opportunity to shift the set to support.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And get a better mid.
Something much higher damage priority.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I wrote this literally right after, because most of this big ban is great from both ends. I think this is a much better look at Unicorns of Love doing something creative, that it throws people off, but that actually works. This is a much smarter draft from Unicorns of Love. I don't care for what they did before. But PSG taking Alistair last, I think, is the worst aspect of this.
Yeah.
And I wrote this, I said both comps are very bulky and lack sustained damage early leads.
Yeah.
Important. And
if you're set to support, you have a mid lane open. And then your mid lane open, you can, you know, lock in an Orianna. Well, I guess that was taken, but, you know, you could lock in something that has the damage to back you up.
Syndra was open.
Syndra, yep. Lilia, Kate, and Ashe went untouched this draft.
I was actually going to wait for a little pause to say that. Like, this is the first game where Lilia has no presence. Like,
and this is what
I don't understand how Lilia got through for both teams. Like,
I think this is what I mean by they took this game seriously. Both teams definitely took this game seriously. Minus this one fumble from PSG in terms of taking Alistar, and it shows that this is a draft win from Unicorns of Love more than anything else.
Yep.
They both understood that neither team needed the Lilia or Caitlyn or Ashe out of this for them to approach the game, because that didn't fit their styles. They didn't just automatically
say
go
this is powerful
emotions. They both of these teams took each other seriously and researched necessarily a strategy to approach the game. And this is such a great game from both sides, minus I think this is weird that PSG went back to their old bad habits of lack of vision denial approach. Where I was praising them yesterday, they went back to, it's just 3 substitutes and it seems like it's still the same core team. But this was a much smarter game from UOL. Really impressed.
My issue is only like multiple times, like I think in both games to a certain extent too, like after winning a fight, and sure, they win a fight, take an objective, that's what you want, cool. But then they don't necessarily reset right away. They win a fight, like take an objective, and then it'll be like, we can just win the next fight. Like they'll stay on the map or overcommit.
I think this has to do with the fact that the way that they're viewing transitions between different stages of the game does not line up with how they're expecting to just get things on timers. Right? They're not trying to line it up very well. There's like, I don't understand how you properly set up Herald and still fumble Unicorns of Love. Like, that's weird. They do proper setup, but they don't necessarily get it. They did an extended laning phase, and I wrote, this tells me that the game ends at 22 minutes or 48 minutes. It still ended faster than most of the other games that end 30 minutes to 35 minutes, but they had an extended laning phase, so it was really weird to see them go back to that. And again, UOL did not close properly.
Yeah. Because like they take an inhibitor and stay there. It's like, okay, you know they're respawning. You're not going to push and take a Nexus tower because they're all respawning. But you didn't run away and reset. You kind of stayed there, and then 3 of you died.
Mm-hmm.
And then the game goes on another 5 minutes because, well, you let them get back some gold, get back some pressure, get back, vision in their own jungle.
But yeah, there's not much outside of this other than I think this is the team. UOL had the best wave manipulation out of all of the teams so far.
Yeah.
All right.
No Man's CS is like the highest currently in the tournament. Just mentioning it.
Ooh, he's got
The CS numbers are great.
He's got to go for Froggen's record, man. Go for
PSG has great work at transitioning between stages, but they did some fumbling around, and their draft really suffered because of it.
Yeah,
And
I think you're right. Like, I think the game would be a whole different thing if the set was replaced with the Alistair and they got something else mid. It's a whole different game.
But otherwise, this shows very much that these were the top two teams of this group. 100%.
Yeah. Like, I don't think, as much as the Alistair was a mistake, I don't think that it's, like, at least in my opinion, the same mistake that, for example, R7 made picking the Twitch Rakhan.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, it's like, it was a bad, like, idea that didn't work out, but, like, it wasn't, like, game breaking or stupid, like not understanding the reasonings and stuff like that, as bad as, like, the Twitch Rakhan was.
Sure.
Okay, so do we want to move on to SuperMassive?
Transitioning exactly to that exact point. Yeah. The next game where Mad Lions does that exact thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
We go with the opposite. We go from, a couple of games of like teams going like way too many tanks to this game is like neither team has a very good front line, which notice it makes the game very explosive. The tank gives you the ability to control it, especially when you have a gold lead. If you have a gold lead and a proper tank line, you can say, okay, we can set our front to back fight. If we play this properly, we just outdamage you. We have a better tank line. We just win. But if you have a 10k gold lead and your team is super, super squishy, well, the enemy team can still, they can still cheese you by hiding on a control ward in a bush and then just burst you and you're all damaged, so you still die. Right?
Yeah.
So,
remember what I mentioned earlier about people picking Twitch Rakhan into compositions that re-engage or pick it before they can even tell if a composition has re-engage? Oh, look at that. That's a Leona Wukong, the kings and queens of re-engages.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. That's why I have Armand as my player of the day, because he didn't start the fight himself. Wukong was never like being like, okay, I'm jumping in, guys, let's go for this. Leona would go in, Leona would get on somebody. And what was the other thing they had in their team?
They had Leona, Wukong, Senna, Azir, Nidalee.
And Nidalee.
Right. So Nidalee and Azir would also go in. Like Azir would go for the shuffle, right? And then Leona would go in. Wukong went in second. And was going in second, saying, okay, I'm waiting until I have an opportunity. Okay, they're a bit disrupted now by the Leona. They're trying to peel off here. Okay, now I'm able to go in. And he was like, I wrote down his stats. It's like, I have him. He was 17-0 and 14 on the day, 91% kill participation. His CS is by far, he's 8.5 a minute, so far ahead of the second place in top laners. He's got the highest gold per minute in the tournament. Like,
yeah, SuperMassive was actually like pretty ridiculous this game, I think. Like, not that they're like, because I don't think most people were really sleeping on them, I think, for the most part, but like, I'm like,
but it's the same thing in one. Top jungle.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I see SuperMassive, and I'm like, this is something, in my opinion, that can compete in groups. Like, if SuperMassive make it to groups, I think it's like, they're not like gonna easily steamroll anyone, but I'm like, this is competitive. This is what I want.
You know what they're playing through. It's top jungle. That's what you gotta watch. Yeah.
Here, the other thing I want to point out is that Mad Lions straight up doesn't even understand how their core composition works.
Oof.
I kid you not. I said I'm not a fan of Mad's draft. Lots of anti-synergy. Mord and Zoe don't fit the theme of the Hecarim Twitch Rakhan.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, the Zoe, maybe because like there's CC, but I feel like the Hecarim's like super, like, too aggro in comparison to what they want to be doing, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, Hecarim is like, you're creating a dive comp. You're saying like, usually with Hecarim, it's like, okay, we're gonna go in. We can pick stuff that can, we can jump in. We can burst. Like it's good with, which is why it's so good with stuff like the Shen, because you can say, okay, let's just jump in, right? Like, but
I swear to God, if I see another red side team pick Twitch Rakhan, I will have a conniption. This should never happen.
But technically, V3 won their red side Twitch Recon game, so. I'm sorry, Seb. I didn't mean to upset you. I'll stop.
What do you mean? They didn't. There was no V3 red side.
Oh, sorry, not V3. Wow. That's not what I meant at all. I don't know why I said that. I meant I was looking at the wrong thing. I have my ignore me. It's late.
That's fine.
I have Twitch highlighted in red on my board right now. So I said, "Oh, it's on red side. I'm dumb. Continue your smart point. That makes sense."
So here's the issue that I have with this, right? The Twitch Recon is meant to be an answer to whatever the two core you pick from the red side. That's the idea that most of the other people have been picking up. That's not what you're supposed to do unless it's very clear what the other composition was going to be, which is why Team Liquid was very smart when they saw the Evelyn being picked up. And they were like, cool, we understand what the core composition is, and this clearly counters it.
Mm-hmm.
You only saw Nidalee from red side. What are you gleaning from that? You pick Twitch Recon, and you're just letting the other side know exactly what you're going to try to pick as a composition. It makes it immediately easy to answer. They picked Azir, great disengage, absolutely nullifies both Recon and Twitch. And they picked Senna, which again also has great sustain and scales better than Twitch.
And global response to Twitch.
Yeah, and global response. And I'm here going, look, if you're going to do it, the Twitch Recon, and you wanted to go the 1-2 punch, the only time it works is on blue side. Either because you know absolutely what the other team is going to do and you do it on the first round, but you should almost never do that. You would have to be very good at reading what they're going to do, or it's very obvious. Or you do it in the second round rotation, and you better be doing it in the second round rotation for blue side, because that is the only way you're going to get it. If you do it on red side and you do it too early, it is easy to counter. If you do it in the second round rotation on red side, you literally pick one, the other one's gone.
Yep.
So just don't pick it on red side. It's not going to win.
Yeah.
On red side, blue side team should be immediately eliminated from the tournament wholesale.
Oh, that's all right.
This is the stupidest drafting decision of
it's so weak in lane too, like early on. Like you said, like my other trend for the day, which is mentioned over, is like the dragons were taking 10 to 12 minutes a lot of these games.
This shouldn't have been.
Yeah. Like the UOL game, for example, like they could have taken it. There's a couple times like, hey, you could have taken that first dragon. They didn't. But some of the games, like, yeah, Twitch Recon, you don't want to be taking or trying to go for that fight for the first dragon.
All right. We take a little step back.
I want to do one last thing.
We do a woosah. What's the last thing?
So one last thing for this particular game. SuperMassive was much better at this game. They still weren't as great at ballooning the leads, but I must say they had also some stellar wave manipulation. UOL and SuperMassive are both like play-in teams that were expected to be competitive, and I'm glad that they're showing up this way because they're taking up the spots macro-wise as much as like individual skill-wise, because both of these teams were positioned to being goofy as hell and on the way that they came in. Well, is literally scraps, let's go, we're much better. And SuperMassive had not the laners are not great, and Cacao is literally hi, let me smurf the entire region. And the fact that they come in here and they're approaching the game's macro decisions very well tells me, awesome. Keep this up. If this keeps up and your laners improve or you're like taming the aggression properly, you're going to do great when it comes to the group stage. You might not make it out of that, but you could definitely make a dent into whoever wants to be going there.
Yeah.
And I'm always trying to think about one of these teams is going to be facing top. and I hope one of them shows me that they have the opportunity to challenge top and the other teams in their group. I want to see them challenge FlyQuest. I want to see them challenge JD Gaming, Damwon,
Yeah.
all of the teams that have very clean execution where these teams are impressing us, they're doing it, is the norm for these other teams. I want them to be able to keep this up and make it so that it shows me that this is their norm of this tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I agree with that. I think it's a good sentiment.
The other thing I love about this game is I think I was just watching Cacao zombie wards, the amount of wards he was clearing, because Diddley has the ability to like the ranged auto attacks to just, keep moving through things and being like auto while she's going. And like I think at one point there's like 7 zombie wards on the map for him. Like he's just watching where the opponent team is going. It's like, oh, they're always warding the river, and just goes in a line down the river, clears 3 wards, gets it down. Like
it's pretty good.
He must have. They don't have a stat for it, which is sad. But like he must have cleared 30 wards that game.
Yeah,
that was insane.
Well, you never know. Maybe if you tweet at Quickshot has a habit of doing weird stats. So maybe if you tweet at him, he'll get the.
He'll have to look out
the stats.
Pro view count. Yeah.
Alrighty. Now let's move on to the last game of the day.
Yep.
Liquid versus Liquid. I mean, Liquid versus Legacy.
The drafting here is so good from Liquid. Like
TSM Jat at it again.
So remember when I told you all about like people are not thinking about the Twitch Rakhan thing?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Legacy immediately recognizes what they're trying to do and bans Twitch first round.
Mm-hmm.
They don't immediately fall into the trap of picking Evelynn, but it's very obvious to Liquid that that's what they're going to do.
Sure.
So they pick Graves first, and so they're holding off to see what the rest of the composition Legacy. I think Legacy does a great job with this draft up until the Jarvan.
Sure, yeah, the Jarvan didn't make sense.
Jarvan, I think, is what ruins it for them because they're like, all right, Graves is first. Don't pick Evelynn yet until we see the rest of the core composition. And they pick Lucian, Thresh, and I think those are great, solid answers that allows them to have something that nullifies whatever they might pick as a support, and it's not a bad take early in for Legacy. Lucian mid means that they could work well with what they need from that. And
so,
all right.
Sorry, really quick. How do we feel about the Ziggs?
I think it's fine.
Really? Okay. I thought you'd have a bigger issue with it, honestly.
No, honestly, I think this type of play, this is in comparison to the Orianna, bad. Don't do the Orianna bot lane, guys. That's not going to help. The Ziggs is meant to mimic how ADCs approach the lane.
Yeah.
Because Ziggs approaches the laning just as well as most of the other marksmen because of the type of pressure it adds to turrets and the types of ways it controls wave manipulation.
Yeah.
Because those are the two things you look at when you're doing lane phase.
Right.
My issue is that this was not approached properly.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting thing I noticed. Sorry, go ahead.
They took it in as Ashe was picked, which I think isn't a huge issue, but they had Thresh, and that left them open to being countered after the bans have been put through.
Yep.
And Legacy recognized this. This is why both of their next bans are supports. And Team Liquid recognizes that they're trying to ban supports that are great at re-engages and also at engages in general. And Liquid bans Camille and Evelynn. And the Evelynn ban points out immediately that Legacy understands why the Twitch was good and points out that Team Liquid understand much more how invisibility plays out for the rest of this tournament. If I see any Twitch or Evelynn in the next coming days, I think you're just trend hoppers and you don't understand how this works.
Well, I mean, my tendency to like the AP junglers in general, because you'll notice, I think right now you're saying the 3 AP junglers that are the strongest. Like we saw Gragas played, we saw Elise played. Sure, I think, but you'll notice in this game, Nidalee's banned, Lilia's banned, round 3, Evelynn's banned. So you're seeing, okay, Lucian, we're expecting that to go mid lane, right? They've locked in. Now they did take the Ziggs, which is, gets themselves some AP and stuff, but they did Silas top. So they have the options elsewhere. But, they likely, if it had been banned, we're going for an AP jungler. But when you ban those top 3, it would force them onto an Elise or a Gragas, which are kind of like your B tier, right? So I think Legacy's saying there, oh, do we really want a Gragas? Is it really that good? Yeah. Did Echo pass through draft?
Completely.
Yeah.
Why did they pick Jarvan and not Echo?
Yeah, that Echo would have been much better. I totally agree.
The one reason why I could see why they would want to pick the Jarvan is to just kind of have like a crater to just unload on. Because like with the Ziggs,
Okay.
like
but,
the Ziggs, sorry,
Echo
what?
does that. Echo does that too. Sort
Echo does that too, but it's a stun. It's harder to land, whereas Jarvan just jumps on you. Like Jarvan can flash ult you, whereas Echo, like you do see the bubble coming, so like it's a lot more dodgeable. So I can see the line where they're like, okay, Ziggs throws bomb over it, Lucian throws culling into it, and like you knock out whoever you got trapped in there. So it's like it's not the best idea, but I get it. So I'm not super down on it. I do think the Jarvan's a weird pick, but I mostly just don't like Jarvan right now.
So I want you guys to remember the game I played when I said that Australia has one style of play.
Yes.
Yep.
Jarvan is the tank. I know.
And who's the CC option?
It's mixed between Thresh and Jarvan.
Who's the re-engage option?
Thresh.
Utility. Yeah, and then
Or
you
Silas,
keep doing this over and over and over again, and you realize. And I also mentioned this in the bunch of posts that I wrote up when going through all of these playoff games.
Yep.
Australia picks very simple compositions, but very obviously readable compositions. And I think we're going to focus mostly on the draft here because the rest of this game is Team Liquid is smurfing on them.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like they're choking them out and they're playing Team Liquid style at full open force, telling them, hey, meanie us. You're not just meanie us, you're nano us. You're not even on the same scale.
The one thing I will give to them, though, really quick, sorry, Connor, is like, yes, they're playing a simple comp, but I do still think I would personally rather play simple than having them play something super hard to execute. That's my one thing.
I 100% agree.
Sure. The one thing I like, but like, we've seen the Rakhan with the Twitch a lot. I was going to say like earlier, like if you see Twitch Rakhan, I'd like to see something like an Ornn with it, because it gives you that engage option. You can use the Ornn ult to set up the Rakhan W, that kind of thing. So it works really well, and it gives you that late game, gives your Twitch like that extra bit of power to make it so strong.
Ornn can give Molten Edge to Twitch.
It's so good with that. So I really like seeing how. So TL, not only do they have a lot of CC, but everyone on their team, literally all 5 people, have AoE, like small range AoE damage. So basically they can say, okay, if Rakhan lands a W, for example, or if Orianna lands a good shockwave, like if one of these AoE things works, we all just combo off of it. So let's say Ornn shockwave, Ornn ult hits 3 people, cool. Now that they're CC'd, Rakhan can charm them in, or Orianna shockwaves them in. They're all now grouped together from the shockwave and the charm. And just all of this AoE burst damage just explodes. So you get into a team fight. It's like, that is scary. You have Ornn double knockup, Rakhan charm knockup, shockwave, Ashe W, and usually builds Hurricane. It's good on Ashe. Like, she does AoE damage. Graves is, going to put his Q and his ult on top of that, and they're both going to hit because there's so much CC.
Yeah, I think it was smart.
Just AoE burst.
Yeah.
We saw it happen.
I do want to make a quick note about Team Liquid. We don't talk about them a lot because they're doing what they're expected to. There's not much to talk about them other than, hi, they're playing Team Liquid style and they're doing it very well. They're choking games out very quickly. But as I was watching this, I put a note, I want TL to accelerate the pace.
Yeah.
And then I did an underscore for this and I went, arrow, they did. I'm happy to see that Team Liquid isn't just idly standing by when they have clear leads and clear closing opportunities.
Yeah. They're forcing things.
Yep.
Hopefully, that means that now, when they get to BO5s and hopefully groups, they don't just get instantly rolled by, like, Chinese aggression, because that's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah. Well, if they keep drafting this solidly, it puts them in the position to win. So
I gotta say, Team Liquid is doing things by the books as smart as they can. In 2 days, when they face off SuperMassive, I don't expect SuperMassive to beat them.
Mhm.
And I
Ooh.
definitely don't expect INTZ to beat them. INTZ, I think this is their. I think they only have 1 game left.
They do.
This
Yeah.
is literally their last chance to survive. And considering that Mad has to face Supermassive, they have to beat Team Liquid, and I don't think it's gonna happen.
If
Yep.
INTZ beats Team Liquid, then I give up
Bro.
on Liquid. I give up on Paid by Steve. I give up. Like like sell everyone except for Core JJ. Come back next year. Pull a TSM. Like at that point, I would approve that. Just because like if you lose to INTZ at this point after what we've seen from them, I don't know, man. I know the first day we did a video, we were like, oh yeah, like I think I actually said this. I was like, oh yeah, the INTZ Mad game, like it's a coin flip. Like there's half the time I think INTZ wins this. That's like their only good showing.
Yeah, honestly, and barring them like chilling out a bit and refocusing how they usually approach the game, I don't.
Yeah.
I'm gonna eat my words again because something happens 2 days from now and it's gonna be wild. But you know,
Record.
they're probably going to lose. And Team Liquid has 2 games they're gonna play against Supermassive, and that's gonna determine who's the first or second place, likely.
Mm-hmm.
Unless Supermassive somehow loses both of the games, in which case they'll be tied for second, and it won't matter. They'll have to play a tiebreaker against Mad Lions. We'll see from that point on.
Yeah.
But that game will likely determine who's first.
Yep, you're right.
And INTZ is playing a formality.
Yeah.
But Legacy, however, has a chance to upset. You know?
Yep.
So if Legacy beats Supermassive, it will surprise me a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
I will 100% concede and tell them that they are not the worst region this year.
Yeah.
All right, that's a lot.
But
I just think that like Australia, like the way they were mainly playing is like they were also playing to top lane and like jungle supporting top, and I feel like Supermassive just does that better.
Yes.
So if both teams are playing to top and doing jungle pressure on topper, I feel like Kakao just styles on Babbitt, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Or maybe Tapoon can help. Maybe Tapoon can help.
Okay, but
Tapoon to beat our
Armut's been insane. Is the second thing.
I know, but like
So
but I will eat my words. If Legacy beats Supermassive, then I will have to concede and say that Brazil was the worst region. But they have not convinced me otherwise.
All right.
Brazil has been much more competitive against some of the top teams. Legacy has not.
Mm-hmm.
And them winning against Brazil just tells me that they're both on equal levels, just that Brazil has more flexibility.
Yeah.
Okay. Any, I guess, trends then? Last things to say?
I've covered my trend issue that I have with the Twitch Rakhan, but I will say, Connor, your prediction yesterday came true. Your prediction about the Vel'Koz support came up.
Vel'Koz made, but
I mean, your Vel'Koz mid, the Vel'Koz was still banned.
It was banned, yep.
And I don't remember which game. Oh my goodness.
It was the Supermassive Ints game
versus INTZ. And you know what?
I said that specific player plays it. So Supermassive's mid laner, I believe it was, or it was Unicorns, whatever it was. That specific player played it. That's what I think was what I mentioned.
But the fact that you still called it, so you know.
My last thing was, okay, so at this point, Lilia went through 1 game, so we have no 100% pick ban, which is cool to see. It's nice to say, hey, we're going to have a Worlds for sure now, where there's no 100% pick ban. Ash was 0-4 yesterday, won its games today, so we're not saying like, oh, Ash is losing everything now. So I think
Mhm.
it's what you mentioned, Josh.
The game
Day
that
one.
team played.
The last two things champ-wise is Oriana is 5-0 and Nautilus is 4-0.
I think that has to do more with
But-
the way they're being picked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's like the champs are just free wins.
No,
I think it's
no. It's just
think
something to mention.
Yep.
It's
They've been played together. And then the last thing is, so I was keeping an eye on AP junglers. That's my thing. The more things I've been watching. We've had 13 like AP jungle picks in 12 games. This last game with TL was the only time it wasn't picked, but 3 of them were banned. Yeah, so that's the first game we didn't have an AP jungler because it was Graves versus Jarvan. But we still had 3 of them banned, so
It still had a presence, yeah.
exactly, yeah.
All right, so Seb, you got a question for us, I think.
I have 2 questions for you guys.
Yes.
Okay. Do you think LGD is going to get eliminated in 5th place with 4 losses?
Ooh.
What are the last games? Hold on. Let me look at their games.
V3 and Unicorns of Love.
I feel like at the very least, GA or Kramer has to carry a game because they're that good. You would think.
Yeah,
Wow,
like
almost how Rainbow 7 would have worked out.
I'm thinking that I don't think they're going to go out 0-4. I think they're going to get a win, and I think they might cause a tiebreaker and then like go home off the tiebreaker. I think. I like, as much as like I was saying earlier, that I think it'd be really cool if like LGD went home, because then it would maybe speak a bit about like how other regions are getting better, because the 4th seed from theoretically the best region in the world got sent home by worse minor regions. Like, that says something, so I kind of want it to happen. But I also don't think, I don't know, like there's like a thing inside me that's just saying like there's no way they go home 0-4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't really see it either. I mean, like even the UOL game, like I don't want to go, like I predicted Unicorns 4-0 and I want to see it, but I was predicting that to be like, you know, the big upset versus the Chinese team was them winning that. But by no means is it like, yeah, they're going to win that game, even after seeing this.
Mm-hmm.
I do think they will lose.
Yeah.
Yeah. If this is the LGD that we saw these last 2 days that shows up tomorrow, this is the exact same. They are gone 100%. They aren't playing as smart as what V3 is playing, and they are not up to snuff in terms of the pressure or team fight abilities that UOL has been putting up.
Mm-hmm.
And they were outshone in all of those elements by Rainbow 7, and Rainbow 7 is clearly worse than both of those teams.
Yeah.
As much as I love Rainbow 7, but they're not better than V3 in the macro sense. They literally proved that when they played against Rainbow 7,
Mm-hmm.
and they were not better than Unicorns of Love with these team fighting abilities.
Yeah.
And wave manipulation is a thing that LGD has done none of, and they don't know how to play against any type of pressure so far. If this is the LGD that we see, not happening. If it's the LGD that I saw in their first 2 series at their playoffs, they'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not been. It's been the LGD that's been playing since their semifinals play against JD Gaming, where they lost 3-1, and then they lost 3-0, and then they lost 3-0, and then they barely beat IG. Barely is stretching it. They still won 3-1, but like that was not even close to clean games.
I don't know. The thing prediction for them is they go either 1-3 or 2-2 if they're able to beat Unicorns, and then win their first best of 5 against the other person in their group, and then likely will lose to the whoever TL Supermassive they get in the other bracket. That's what I'm going to go with.
All right.
That's some deep predictions.
Yeah, I'm going
hit
that far.
us with that second question, Seb.
Twitch will be abandoned in the same way Echo was.
Sorry, could you repeat that? You lagged out a little bit for me.
Yeah. Do you think that the Twitch Rakhan combo will be abandoned in these next coming days in the same way that the Echo was last year?
I don't think so.
Mm.
I think there's still going to be teams that are either crushing with it in scrims,
Uh-huh.
because scrims sometimes give people false hope. I think there's still going to be some teams crushing with it in scrims and still like holding on to the fact that it's won a couple games now, and going to be like, oh, well, that last team that lost with it, fluke. It's totally fine. So I think Twitch Recon is still going to be a thing. I'm even going to say, I bet you Red Side first picks Twitch Recon.
And then loses.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's still going to get picked, because I mean, if you're looking at it at it's 1-3, you are, you know, if one of those games went differently, it's 2-2, 50%, whatever, right?
Mhm.
So it's not necessarily what's been hurting them a lot. I don't think it's bad on its own. I think if you're going to play it, you got to draft, like, you got to at least draft a primary engage tool other than the Recon that can set up the fights for you. And
Mhm.
teams have not been doing that.
I will also
Yeah.
add, you have to make sure that there's no re-engage options to ruin that engage. So, yeah, I agree 100%. If you're going to do it, make sure that you have an engage option and ways to either deal with the re-engage from the opposing team, or get rid of any re-engage option that's appropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's about it. To us over here, it is 1:40 in the morning. They
Woo.
play in about 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Oh, sorry, my last update.
Yeah.
Current champs played is 57. So we got 15 new champions today,
Nice.
from 42 to 57.
One of them was Cassidin.
Yep. One of them was Belkaz, one of them was Blitzcrank. Yeah.
So, I'm going to say thank you all for those who are watching. Do let us know. Do you think the trends are going to change? Do you think Twitch Recon is going to be a thing? Do you think that LGD is going to have another 2015 moment? Let us know in the comments. Like and subscribe. And thank you all for watching Vision Denial. We'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye.